Welcome to the Fantasy Football Show on Sikkim 365 Radio, presented by Brotherwell Brewing.
It's Gronkowski back again.
Here's Paul Catalina, Steve May, and Grayson Grundhaver.
Welcome into the Fantasy Football Show here on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports, brought to you by our good friends at Brotherwell Brewing down on Bridge Street right here. Never gets old starting a show like this, Steve. I mean, it probably does for Grayson, who keeps forgetting to get the beer I got him.
It's sad times. I even saw it today as I was doing the Bearcaster when I was up there on Tuesday. I saw it, and I was like, I need to go grab it. And, of course, I forgot. Yeah. Well,
I'll have to get you some more because we're probably going to drink this before the end of the night. Just going to happen. So what's going to happen? We are having the Act of Faith here, and as you see, the Bridge Street VIT is right there. And I'm Paul Catalina. He's Steve May. Grayson Grundhaver from the Austin Bureau. And, guys, I went 2-1 of my leagues last week. And the one I'm not mad about because I had a really good outing. It's just the guy I was playing was had his what's going to be his best week of the year.
Yeah.
And so I feel good about that. But I'm really confident in my roster going forward on both these teams, which makes me know that everybody's about to tear their Achilles tendon. All at once, simultaneously, they will tear their Achilles tendons. How were your weeks, guys? How do we feel? Steve, I'll start with you because you were in the fantasy football doldrums a couple weeks ago.
I was still there a little bit. It was a little bit better week. So I'm in 9 leagues, which I've said before, and yes, that's a problem. 4 of those I really pay attention to. So in those 4, I went 2-2, which was better than what I had been doing the previous weeks. Now on DFS, the other world which we play in, I had a very good week. Not in the little league we have, but outside of that, some of the other rosters I built did quite well. So that was a nice change also from my previous weeks.
All right, Grayson, how did you do?
Yeah, the leagues I care about, I went 7-1.
Wow.
Great week. But in the league that I care the most about, guys, I'm just going to go ahead and tell a little story, a fun story from Monday Night Football. So I'm a huge Colts fan, so that's the first problem. So they lost, but also as I'm watching this game, I came into the game up 9 points, and I had Jonathan Taylor. My opponent had Lamar Jackson.
Oh, dear God.
And I was up 151 to 130 going into the fourth quarter of the game. The fourth quarter, I lost by 1 point, 156 to 157. Lamar Jackson, 44 fantasy points. And if the game doesn't go to overtime, I win. If Rodrigo Blankenship makes an extra point or either of his 2 field goals, I win. It was a very painful Monday.
If that fumble counts for Lamar Jackson, that you win. Yeah, because then that essentially the game would have been over at that point. Oh man, that's tough. We're going to do this in the first segment this week. Hayden has a problem we're going to get to. I have a problem which we need to address, which has become a recurring theme. So we'll start with mine because I'm clearly more important than Hayden. But Hayden produces us, so he's important too.
Is it a fantasy football problem or something else you want to get off your chest?
No.
Oh, okay. All right.
I flat out can't stand. No. I might need that Seth Meyers bit where he the microphones go out.
Yeah.
He's like, you know what? Shampoo's a lie. No, I have Brandon Ayuk on 2 rosters, and I'm getting to the point where he's taking up space. But I'm worried that when I release him, then the 49 he'll wake up. But I don't feel good about that. Grayson, you're the biggest Brandon Ayuk supporter I know. What should I do?
Yeah, I would not drop him. And the reason I wouldn't is because Kittle is out, so there is an opportunity there. The problem is they're on bye this week. But for me, I would not drop him. He still, in my opinion, is the second wide receiving option there besides with Kittle out. So I'd hold on to him if you can. I mean, now if you're going to ask me, would I rather have Brandon Ayuk or Kadarius Toney, who is on the waiver wire this week? I'd rather have Toney. But if you're dropping him for, just like a Tim Patrick, I'd rather have the upside of Brandon Ayuk.
Well, yeah,
that's
but
just my personal opinion.
I'm getting into I dropped Trey Sermon this week to pick up guys who are actually going to play because Trey Sermon's just not. I mean, he's just lost in the shuffle there.
Yeah.
And so I dropped Trey Sermon, and they are on bye, but I've got a bye week coming up next week, which is we'll just call it the heavy bye. And so it'd be nice if I like in that week. That's kind of where I cut bait, and then. Because I kind of plan that out sometimes where I'm just going to have a week where I can kind of weather a storm, and then after that I've got my guys going forward.
Right.
But I've got a heavy bye next week, so a lot of guys and I just kind of wanted to use that spot to, retain somebody or pick somebody up in the coming weeks. So one of the things I only have one tight end on that roster, and it's Dalton Schultz, and on one of the rosters, and I'm not dropping Dalton Schultz.
Right.
So I'd maybe like to use Brandon Ayuk's spot to pick up Dalton Schultz's replacement, and that's where I'm at right now, Steve.
It just depends on what's available on the waiver wire. Like Grayson said, if Toney is out there, and going into last night's waiver acquisitions, he was only rostered in about 10 or 12% of the league. So chances are he was available. So I would definitely make that move. Grayson mentioned Tim Patrick. That would be a tough call either way, but it just depends on if whoever's out there, will they make your team better for the long run? And Ayuk has been extremely frustrating. When George Kittle comes back, in my mind, Ayuk goes back down to the third option there after Debo and George Kittle. So you just got to look at it. And
I think, just looking at what's available right now, and maybe in 2 weeks there'll be another thing that pops up where I can replace it. But I think I'm going to this week just drop him and fill with a tight end. So that way, because right now I'm out of waivers and there's Jared Cook's available. So I might just go grab him in that spot and leave him. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's definitely a possibility. One thing I would caution people that are going into this bye week and kind of saying, obviously if you have to drop Trey Sermon or have to drop Ayuk, then go ahead and do that. But I think it's very important for a lot of these teams coming out of bye weeks. Usually that's when you really get a chance to see kind of what that team's going to be going forward. So what if coming out of the bye week, they decide they're going to go to Trey Sermon? Or what if outside of the bye week, they start to trust Brandon Ayuk more? I mean, then you're going to be kind of kicking yourself that you waited this long and then decide to cut them right before the bye week, right before things change. I know it's a long shot, but if you can, I would try to hold on to him just in case.
Well, Trey Sermon was dropped for Devontae Booker.
Yeah.
And so that was, it wasn't like I was willing, Devontae Booker is probably going to be playing, and we'll get to this in a second, for a stretch here.
Yeah.
And it's valuable to have rostered even if Saquon Barkley comes back, because now Saquon Barkley's got a problem, which is how now we bring in Hayden to this. You see how I did it? I made it seem like I was more important, but it was all planned and transitioned that way. Hayden has a Saquon Barkley issue.
That was a very professional transition. Well done.
Thank you.
Yes, I do. So I have Zach Moss on my bench, and I'm going to start him this week. But my biggest issue is next week. DeAndre Swift is my second running back. He's going to have a bye next week. And I assume Saquon won't be back. I don't know where to go. So
what's available on your waiver wire?
What's available is I've been looking at the Denver running back. Javonte Williams is probably the best available.
A lot of people have cut Williams, and I've been grabbing him when I can, because I do think as we go week to week, he's going to start taking over more of the carries in Denver. So if he's available, I would definitely get him. Barkley, they're being really hush-hush, right? I mean, they haven't really said 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or what the plan is there for him. So, you may just want to wait till next week when you actually have the bye week for Swift to see, because there could very well be an injury this week. Odds are that probably will happen.
Yeah.
So there could be another backup that's available out there. Darrell Williams with Kansas City, with Elaire being out.
Got him in both leagues where I have Elaire. Yeah, so.
Yep. Damian Williams with Chicago is still available.
Khalil Herbert in Chicago, actually, yeah.
Yep. So one thing I do, if we're all talking about the ESPN site, which I think most of us use, I always look on the players available, and I click the category that shows the percentage that they were added. And so by doing that, you can get a sense of what other people are thinking. So if it's a high percentage in the green, that means a lot of people added that player that week. If it's in the red, then they're being dropped, obviously. So that's another thing I'll look at to kind of help me make my waiver decisions.
Yeah, Grace, anything to add to that?
Yeah, one thing I would say, I like Javonte long term. I think he and Melvin are going to be a split pretty much throughout the season. There's no point in them going away from Melvin because he's got 1 year left. You might as well run him into the ground. But what I would say is they play Cleveland next week, and that's a very tough matchup for running backs. So I would just caution you there, Hayden, on if you're trying to get a spot start for that next week, that is not the best matchup to attack. So if there are guys that are maybe in more favorable matchups, that might be something to go with, kind of streaming the position a little bit more. If you're just looking for a spot start for Saquon. And I also wanted to say an interesting thing that I think people are it's kind of lost in the shuffle for some reason, but the Chiefs have been checking in on Marlon Mack and his availability from the Colts. So a lot of people went and picked up Darrell Williams, and yes, Darrell Williams is the name to add, but if they go out and get Marlon Mack, that's going to be a big issue in that Kansas City backfield for the whole season. I mean, even when CEH comes back, Mack will probably have a role.
Well, if they do go get Marlon Mack, that Andy Reid usually gets guys and uses them. Save Le'Veon Bell. That was the weird one. He just didn't. He just kind of sat him there and kept him on the roster. But, they're going to use Josh Gordon. They're going to use him. Maybe not a lot, but they're going to use him. That's what the Chiefs do is they spread the ball around.
He had one target, I think.
Yeah, but they're going to use him. And if he's good enough to be on the roster a week after being not in the league forever, that kind of shows you what kind of shape he's in. I do think this, and you brought up Marlon Mack, the trade deadline is coming. Yes. And I think it's going to be odd because 17 games, there might be guys normally you would trade that you won't because you're like, well, it's 17 games. With an extra game, this is a game of attrition. I just going to keep this guy around. But if there's true value to him, Marlon Mack, right now the Colts are not even close to using him very often.
Right.
It's Jonathan Taylor and it's Hines. And he doesn't really play that much. So, they have an asset that they're not going to use. And he's the third running back, and you can find a third running back. There's a guy on the practice squad you can bring up to be the third running back. Other big names, some big names might get traded. Odell Beckham Jr. might get traded from Cleveland.
He might get traded. Zach Ertz. Mm-hmm. I think Marlon Mack and Ertz are probably the two most likely big names to get traded. But the deadline is at this.
It's in November.
Okay,
right the 1st of November. So, they've got like an extra week than they would normally have because of there's an extra week in the season. So that's the other thing to remember is. There's an extra week. Now, you may not have added an extra week to your fantasy league if you didn't check that box or whatever. Yeah. So you might still be done in week 13 like you normally are, but for the regular season. But at the end of it, there's still another game at the end. So you got to watch the rosters be affected by that. So, but Marlon Mack, if Marlon Mack goes to Marlon Mack's going to get traded, I would think.
Yeah.
Don't you think, Grace, that he's going to get traded?
Yeah, and what they're doing is definitely on purpose. Over the last 2 games, they've been playing him a little bit. Part of it is Hines has been a little bit banged up, and I know people are cautious about Hines right now. He's been dealing with an injury, so that's why he's not really being a focal point at all in their offense. But they've been playing Mack right after they benched him for that game, and I think it's to show that he's healthy and show teams that he can actually play. And if you watch the game against the Ravens, he had a couple nice runs. He still looks like a pretty capable running back, and in the Kansas City offense, I think he could be quite the factor because honestly, I'm not a big believer in Darrell Williams' talent at all, and same with Jerick McKinnon. I think McKinnon's pretty washed from the injuries, and Williams just has never really proved anything to me, to be honest.
Williams will be the beneficiary of of them not worrying about him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, if you play him, look, I picked him up in the league that Steve and I play in. I have CEH in 2 leagues, and I picked Darrell Williams up in both those. One of the leagues, I don't have to play him this week. In our league, I don't necessarily have to play him, but based on what happens on Sunday, I might. But he's there, and I don't know how long CEH is going to be out. So, and I'm not nuts about having CEH on the roster, honestly. Like, he'll have you in a 13-week regular season. He's going to have 8 weeks where you're fine with him on the roster. It's fine. 6 weeks where you're like, I wish I didn't have this guy. And at this 13 or 5 weeks, and then 1 week you're like, hell yeah. And that week was 2 weeks ago. So, but yeah, it's, otherwise he's just how he is. And that's how the Chiefs work. I remember when he got drafted, like, man, that's perfect. He's going to get so many yards. He's going to get so much this. And then the offense just doesn't flow through him at all. It's all through Mahomes. And so, while he's perfect for that offense, it's just one of those things where, any Chiefs running back, you're going to be like, nah, we'll see what they do. It's all about Mahomes that given week. So, all right, when we come back, start 'em, sit 'em. This week, who should you start? Who should you sit? Who's got bad matchups? Who's got good ones? This is the Fantasy Football Show here on 365 Sports. Brought to you by Brotherwell Brewing.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Show here on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. Thanks to our good friends at Brotherwell Brewing, right down here from the studio on Bridge Street. Look, if you're coming to Waco for any reason, want to go hang out at a cool place, Brotherwell Brewing. They have trivia on Thursday night. So if you're watching this on Thursday and go, what am I doing?
They just won some kind of competition, local brewery competition that I think Barnett's put on.
Yeah.
And Brotherwell came out on top, which if you've been to Brotherwell and had their beer is no surprise at all.
Yeah. They're quite good at what they do at Brotherwell, and I believe the Fest beer is still in because it's still October.
Yeah.
So drink until it runs out. I tried to get them to run a tap all the way here. It's only 2 blocks. I mean, it seems to be scientifically possible, but apparently it's not cost effective.
Well, someday we'll have beer on demand.
Yeah, I mean, we have everything else. Show me a picture of Dan Quayle tripping on the stairs in 1993. Done. But beer right here? No, not yet.
Yep.
Come on, science. I can't. I don't understand you. All right, start 'em, sit 'em. Let's start with quarterbacks. Steve, you won my mental coin toss, so you'll go first this week.
Well, I'm so honored.
Tails, by the way.
So, of course. 2 quarterbacks I like that might be down the list a little bit. I like Stafford this week against the Giants. The Giants can be thrown on with their offense in shambles right now, probably having Glennon at quarterback. Maybe even if Jones is back, they're struggling. So I do think Stafford will have an opportunity to put up some points there. I also like Carson Wentz. The Colts are playing Houston. Wentz looked pretty good Monday. Maybe he's getting close to being 100% healthy. So that could be a start for you if you're streaming your QBs. Something that I don't like with everything going on in Vegas, I would shy away from Derek Carr. this week. The first few weeks of the season, he was the man. He was lighting it up, and people were picking him up, and he was a great streaming option, but not so much anymore. And then I guess we got to see what the status. Have they said what Wilson for Seattle? Is he going to play?
6 weeks.
Yeah, he's out for a good. He had surgery. So
yeah, that's what I thought. So Geno Smith he's Geno Smith. So yeah, he throws it down the field kind of willy nilly. He can get lucky on some big completions, but I would shy away from him.
You know what may happen is that Tyler Lockett and DJ Metcalf might catch a couple of touchdowns because he is that way.
Yeah.
But he may not be worth playing because he's not going to have a lot of yards. He might get some touchdown passes, but I wouldn't count on Geno Smith doing much. Like I've always been leery of him. When you fire your agent the day after the draft because you weren't a first round pick, that was not his fault.
Right.
Like he didn't call these teams and be like, listen, guys, you don't want to do this.
Who drafted him? Jets?
The Jets.
Yeah,
the Jets in the second round. So, I've always been leery of Geno Smith. And he had that, the first 8-9 passes he threw, man, wow, look at that. And it took 9 passes for, who were they playing last week? The Rams. For the Rams to go, hey, just watch his face. He'll tell you where he's going.
Yep.
All right, Grayson, what do you got in quarterbacks?
Yeah, so I really like Matthew Stafford. I think that's a really good call by Steve there. I also really like Taylor Heineke this week against the Chiefs. That Chiefs defense is brutal, guys. They are, they're really, really bad. I think it's actually going to cost them a chance at a Super Bowl this year. It's that bad. I'm not going to say I've ruled them out, but they're definitely in some trouble. They need to adapt for sure. A little bit down on the list. I think these are 2 interesting names if you really are in a pinch. But how about if Tua plays this week against Jacksonville, and then he's playing against Trevor Lawrence? So if you're going way down the list, you're trying to find a sneaky play, I think those 2 against each other could kind of be a little bit of a sneaky game. So both of them, as far as sits go, I'm not playing Ryan Tannehill until I see something. Yep. I can't. He just, for whatever reason, has not clicked this year. And part of it's his receivers are all hurt.
Whatever reason, the's 2. The receivers are all hurt, and the offensive line is terrible.
Yeah.
At pass blocking. At run blocking, they're fine.
Run the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they take on Buffalo, and Buffalo's been great. And I do have a top quarterback that I'm a little worried about this week, and it's Aaron Rodgers. I'm a little nervous against the Bears. That Bears defense has been really good. So if you can move to maybe a Matthew Stafford or a Taylor Heineke or someone like that, I might make that move this week.
All right, running backs, Grayson's to you now.
Okay, so at the running back position, guys, this is an interesting week because we just saw what the Colts did on Monday. So it's like, are they going to have a hangover? Are they not going to play well this next week? But they're playing the Texans. And I think Jonathan Taylor is a home run play this week. He's slowly but surely becoming that RB1 that everyone drafted him as. That first round pick, he's playing better and better. So he's a great start. I love James Robinson this week against the Miami Dolphins. Darrell Henderson against the Giants is another really good one. And if you're going to go a little bit lower down on the list and try to find some sneaky plays, Zach Moss is a really interesting one against the Titans, along with the combo of Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams against a Raiders team that I don't know if they're going to show up this week, and they're very susceptible to giving up yardage in the run game. What do you mean?
Why? It's been a dull week.
We forgot to talk about that.
Yeah,
some big news happened there.
Yeah, it's a big news. Yeah, maybe, okay, a little sidebar here. Maybe avoid your Raiders this week if you can, for the reasons that Grayson did, and the fact that they've had a really emotional week and their coach had to quit.
Yep.
Because in a wide sweeping investigation of the Washington football team, the NFL has finally rooted out 2 people who haven't worked there ever, in Adam Schefter and John Gruden. So good work, NFL. But and look, John, and I'm not saying this to make light of it. John Gruden absolutely should have resigned and walked away. What he said, I mean, you can't walk in the locker room and have any credibility and say, like, look, I'm not really like that. I was just goofing around. You're like, All right, but why would you goof around if you're not really like that?
Right.
You know, that's
Right.
So it just there's too much for his credibility, which means that maybe not just this week, but for a couple weeks, the Raiders might be kind of reeling as they figure out, how to move forward.
I think they're pretty much done for the year. That's just I think they might mail it in, but that's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. As far as sits this week, guys, Miles Sanders, not playing him against Tampa Bay. He has not finished inside the top 34 running backs since week 1. Just really unfortunate what's happened to him in Philadelphia. They're just centering their entire offense around Jalen Hurts. So I would try to get away from playing him. I also don't really want to play Damian Williams this week against the Packers if I can avoid it. I know he had a pretty good week last week, but Packers' run defense is pretty good. They're susceptible through the air. So who knows, guys? Maybe finally the Bears will throw the ball 20 times and Allen Robinson might actually show up this year for the first time.
All right, Steve, what do you got on running backs?
For running backs, I like DeAndre Swift. Detroit's playing Cincinnati. Swift, I think, is going to catch a lot of passes, so I think that'd be a good play. I love Antonio Gibson with Washington against Kansas City. Kansas City's run defense, I think, is 31st in the league. And Antonio Gibson, kind of like Jonathan Taylor, starting to show signs of justifying that late first round, early second round pick in most drafts. And then Grayson mentioned Darrell Henderson. I think Henderson's going to have a great game this week against the Giants. Some that I do not like, we already talked about the Raiders. So Josh Jacobs, I would avoid him if possible. The Carolina running back situation, McCaffrey might play. I don't think he will. So then you have Hubbard, but there's too much uncertainty there as to what's going to happen. So I would just avoid that whole situation altogether.
All right, Steve, now to wide receivers, just to you.
Receivers, I like. These are some usual suspects, but the Washington-Kansas City game, I love McLaurin. Grayson already mentioned Heineke. I think Heineke is a great play in season-long or in DFS, which we'll talk about later. So McLaurin, I love Jamar Chase against Detroit. I think that's a great play. And then in Pittsburgh with Juju going out, that clearly helps Johnson and Claypool. So I do like Claypool this week going up against Seattle. The Seattle defense hasn't been that great, so Claypool will be a good play. And then for and I got to give props to Robert Woods. He didn't score a touchdown, but man, if you're
all over the place.
If you're in a PPR, he was outstanding. So hopefully that will continue. For receivers, I'm going to avoid Odell Beckham. We talked about him getting traded. We don't know what's going on there. So
he and Baker Mayfield are not on the same page.
No.
Odell Beckham Jr. in a key moment in that game had a big drop and kind of opened the door for the Chargers to come back in what was a crazy game.
Yeah.
And by the way, Justin Herbert is a play no matter what defense he's playing, by the way. Like, he's now to that point where he was playing against a good defense last week and racked up 47. Right. So he's an automatic play. But after that, it looked like Baker Mayfield was in his feelings about Odell Beckham Jr., and that was that.
Yeah. And then Tennessee, I'm going to Tannehill should have A.J. Brown and Julio Jones this week, but I'm not playing any of them until, kind of like what Grayson said, until they show signs of life in the passing game. It's Derrick Henry. It's Tannehill running. It's so hard to predict what's going on there. So for this week at least, I would avoid the Tennessee receivers.
Yeah. And again, I think Ryan Tannehill, maybe a year from now when they address that offensive line and they can in the offseason, will probably be back to what he was a year ago. But they cannot pass block. He's getting sacked 4 or 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And so that's going to affect any quarterback. And they have Derrick Henry. And, I mean, I just think they're that team that made the playoffs last year that's not going to this year. They're going to be 8-8 probably because of the way that they just have some stuff to do. But I like Mike Vrabel, though. I like Mike Vrabel. I think he's going to do some good things. But anyway, Grayson, your wide receivers.
Yeah, and that still might get the Titans in the playoffs because everyone else in that division is 1-4 right now.
Yeah.
So they might still sneak in there. But as far as the wide receiver goes, the Steelers, that's a really common one this week because Juju's out. I mean, this is a game they should win. So I feel like the Steelers receivers, Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, should both be pretty good. I like Emmanuel Sanders this week against Tennessee Titans. The Titans, they're a terrible defense, so I think they'll take advantage of that. One we're going to talk about on our Thursday night DFS play, Devonta Smith for the Eagles. I think he's the real deal. The rookie is looking really good, and the Eagles are going to throw the ball all over the place against the Buccaneers. I also love Brandon Cooks against the Colts. I think he's going to have a massive week. We saw what the Baltimore receivers did to the Colts.
That's another guy who might wind up getting traded, by the way.
And
because that's what he does.
But he has a no trade, I think, clause or something, because he doesn't want to ever get traded again. I heard something about that, but because he's been traded so many times. As far as my sits go, Adam Thielen against Carolina, that Panthers defense is still really good, even with all the injuries they've had. Don't really want to play him this week. And then Tyler Lockett against Pittsburgh. I personally think Geno is going to favor DK Metcalf. I think that's the guy who's going to survive this. I just don't know if Lockett is going to have a big role with Geno. He and Russell have such a good bond with the deep ball, and if you don't have that anymore, I think it just lowers his ceiling significantly. So I'm afraid to play Tyler Lockett till I see a little bit more from Geno.
All right, that is Stardom Sit-em for this week. When we come back, Daily Fantasy. We do our Showdown League plus value plays in Daily Fantasy. This is the Fantasy Football Show on 365 Sports. Like and subscribe.
Please.
Do it. Or the meteor will hit planet Earth. You are the Bruce Willis and his team from Armageddon.
Unless Bruce Willis has something to say about
Listen, no, that like and subscribe is the drill that cuts the asteroid in half.
You going to sing the song?
No.
Okay.
I will not. We'll be back in a second. Thanks to Brotherwell Brewing. This is the Fantasy Football Show here on 365 Sports.
Life is back on, sports bettors, and BetUS has your NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, UFC, PGA, and yes, NFL betting lines up for their 27th year and live betting on all of it. Log into BetUS.com or call 800-792-3887. That's 800-79-BETUS. BetUS for 125% bonuses with promo code SICK'EM125. Customer service pros are ready to get your phone, social, and online sports betting kickoff started now. Play with the proven mainstay in the industry. BetUS. You bet, you win, you get paid. BetUS.com. Use promo code SICK'EM125.
From the first workout to the last practice, sports is an incredible challenge. Hi, this is Dan Ingham with the First National Bank of Central Texas, and we're proud to support each athlete, every parent, and our educators. From families, small businesses, to the biggest industry, we're here to help. With remarkable products like First Free Checking, we've got banking ideas that fuel big dreams. The First National Bank of Central Texas. Familiar faces making local decisions.
Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
Welcome back into the Fantasy Football Show here on 365 Sports, Sikkim 365 Radio, brought to you by Brotherwell Brewing. Having a little more sip of my Act of Faith.
Yes. Got to be careful with this one. This is 8.5. So one of these is almost like two lesser beers.
You know, I don't like your attitude.
Don't tell me what to do.
You're not the boss of me. You think you're better than me? Because you can do math? No. All right. It is Daily Fantasy. We will do our Showdown League. We won $4 last week, guys. Woo! $4.
Big time.
You know what I'm going to do this week to change things up? Hayden is going to make a pick.
Oh, okay.
So this week in the Showdown League. So Hayden better be ready. He better come with it. And I'm feeling good because we won $4. And there's 4 people involved in this show. And
I don't even know if I know who plays tomorrow. Who plays tomorrow?
The Eagles and the Buccaneers.
Okay. Give me some time to look some stuff over.
Yeah. So go ahead. Get on the DFS site that is most associated with royalty. So, and look at the prices there on a Showdown League.
Yes.
And if you just want to shout out a name, I can tell you how much it costs here in a second. But guys, let's. Steve started the last time. Grayson, Daily Fantasy, some good buys, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned Taylor Heineke a little bit, and he's sitting at 5,800 right now. I just think against the Chiefs, they're going to have to score. They're going to be down. I don't see any way he doesn't have a good fantasy performance this week. So he's kind of the quarterback I'm targeting in most of my leagues for this week. As far as the running backs go, I mentioned Javonte Williams this week. I just have a hunch that Denver's actually going to be able to run the ball against the Raiders. And so for 5,000, that's great value. Once again, you're getting a guy in your lineup for really cheap. So I'm pretty excited about that. That possibility. I like T. Higgins this week against the Detroit Lions. Again, 5,300. But instead of paying for, Jamar Chase's one bomb that you're hoping for, he's caught a few of them. But, T. Higgins is pretty safe too, and he has the most red zone targets on this Bengals team. Jamar Chase is 6,700. You're saving 1,400 by going with T. Higgins. Also really like Rondale Moore this week against Cleveland. He's kind of a boomer bust play, but for 4,600, he proved, he's going to be a big part of their offense going forward, especially with Max Williams getting injured. The tight end, he got to slide into more 4 wide receiver sets. And Rondale looked really, really good. As far as tight end goes, I think a sneaky play this week is Ricky Seals-Jones. You give yourself that stack with Taylor Heineke, the former A&M product. He's a tight end. He's $3,000, really cheap, gets to play the Chiefs. I think he's a slam dunk as well, and a perfect guy to save you some money in leagues.
All right, Steve, what do you got?
So for some quarterback bargains, I like Burrow. He's at 6,300. Heineke, which we've talked about a lot. It's just a good matchup, and his price is 58. And then also Roethlisberger. If you want to go cheap, he's coming in at 5,400 against a really bad Seattle defense. Running backs, I like James Robinson. We talked about him in season long. He's at 6,300, which is a bargain for what I think he's going to produce this week. Darrell Henderson is only 6,000. Javonte Williams, as Grayson mentioned, is coming in at 5,000. I'm going to have a lot of lineups with Williams in there. And then receivers, I do think Thielen, he's going to have a tough matchup, but man, this might be the cheapest you ever get him.
Because he had a terrible week last week.
Yeah, so he's at 5,800. I'm going to throw him into some lineups just to see if he has a bounce back week.
Especially when you get down to the flex.
Yeah.
You get down to that flex and you may have $6,000 or whatever. I always take the flex after I do the defense.
Yeah, that's why I do it. Yeah. Yep. Hollywood Brown is at 5,900.
Great fourth quarter last week.
Yep.
Grayson wasn't watching that game, so he doesn't know. But Hollywood Brown had a really fantastic fourth quarter.
T. Higgins is at 5,300, and then Emmanuel Sanders, who's just been lighting it up, he comes in at 5,400. So those are all great bargains for games that also have a pretty good over-under number. So Vegas is expecting those games to be high scoring with those guys. And then tight end, again, kind of a crapshoot. I do like Ricky Seals-Jones, especially at 3,000. Kansas City doesn't cover the tight end very well, so that could be a sneaky play. But the last 2 weeks in DFS on a lot of my lineups, I've got burned on tight end. Jared Cook did nothing this last week. Logan Thomas the previous week
got hurt. Yeah.
Yeah. Goose egg. So tight end has really been killing me. So to me, Seals-Jones could be one of those. He's going to get you, he could get you 15 to 20, or he could get you 0 to 3. So if you want to pay up for something more definite, Dalton Schultz is still about 4,900.
Okay. I'm going to make a warning to you on Dalton Schultz. So Bill Belichick today specifically mentioned Dalton Schultz when he was talking about the Cowboys, which worries me. And I have interviewed at Super Bowls more ex-Patriot players than I can count. And to a man, they all say Bill Belichick will come into the meeting with about 3 things they want to stop total. It's not a complicated game plan. Like he's almost saying, listen, we're willing that this is going to happen. Mm-hmm. And now the Cowboys have so many weapons, he may have to have 4 or 5 things. But what he'll do is he finds out what the one thing is that bails a team out, and he says, listen, we're going to take away the bailout. That way they don't have a bailout, and if the bailout is gone, then the quarterback is going to get in his head. And the Cowboys' bailout is Dalton Schultz.
Yeah.
And so while I think you probably have a good week this week, the matchup of the Cowboys is way better than it would have been any years past against the Patriots. But I mean, the fact that he mentioned him personally makes me think that he's watched a lot of Dalton Schultz film, and he's thinking about how I'm going to match up with Dalton Schultz and ruin Dak Prescott's day.
I agree with that. That's why we didn't really mention it, but I do think Zeke and maybe even more so Tony Pollard could have good games just from the check down passes. So
yeah, because again, he's gonna focus on that one thing that is gonna psychologically hinder your quarterback. And that, I mean, Dalton Schultz. Now, look, they had Blake Jarwin as well, and they were a lot of two tight end, especially with Gallup out. And they were throwing to Noah Brown last week on purpose. It's ridiculous what's going on with that offense right now. Kellen Moore has figured out numerous ways to work things, and that either Jason Garrett didn't want to do, or it just wasn't ready yet. And it's been really, really fun to watch for the Cowboys. All right. Daily fantasy, Bucks and Eagles. To Thursday night football. Let's see. I drafted first last week. We won $4. Mm-hmm. So I'm not going to do that again.
You want to ride the hot hand?
I don't want to ride the hot like this, and I don't really believe in that. All right. So I'm going to let Steve do it this week.
Okay.
Because then we keep a rotation, but because we've won 2 weeks in a row, so let's keep the flow going. Steve gets the first pick. Now, this one is tricky on the captain because there are a lot of guys that are worth a lot of money because and then there's a huge drop off. So I think there's a couple of value plays here at the captain. I'm curious to see if you jump into them.
So for captain, I mean, I'm guessing Brady would probably cost us like $18,000 probably.
Yes, 18.6.
Yeah. And so I'm tempted to go with Hurts here.
17.7.
Yeah.
So.
I do think we need both quarterbacks in the lineup somewhere. But for captain, I will go with Mike Evans.
Okay, man. I mean, 15-3. Now, what I was going to suggest for captain, based on value, let me scroll down. Is there a couple here?
Zach Ertz would be one.
Zach Ertz at 30. Now I'm
because Goddard's going to be out.
So Goddard's out on the COVID and the Bucs defense. But
I don't know. I mean, we can still get Ertz in there cheap.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I'm sticking with Evans.
Okay, Grayson.
Yeah, we're not saving money here. We're taking Devonta Smith. He's going in our lineup.
8,800. Okay. I will pick now, and I'm taking the GOAT. But see the thing, if we take the GOAT right here, half our remaining money is gone.
That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
I'm taking the GOAT. Tom Brady. Okay, Hayden. It's all up to you. $4 we won last week.
Okay. That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's a lot of pressure on me. I do like Zach Ertz. Yeah,
You like
I think
Zach
he should
Ertz?
be in the lineup. Yeah,
Okay.
I think he'll get the ball a few times and maybe punch one in.
Okay, there we go. Zach Ertz at 3,200, which is good. 10-3 for the rest of the way going out.
Whose pick is it?
So I guess it would be back to me, right?
Yeah.
And we only have 2 more picks,
Yeah.
so then we're back to you. Okay. All right. This makes it tough, guys, with $10,000 left. I really want to take Antonio Brown. I do not think that the Eagles have the receivers to, or the defensive backs to cover anybody, and Chris Godwin is a little banged up, and he's 8,200, which doesn't leave us much at the end of it. So I don't want to do that. Leonard Fournette's at 7,800. Miles Sanders, who's not going to do much because the Bucs don't let you run, is at 6,600.
I have a sneaky 2,400 player that might give us some room at the top.
Gainwell?
I would.
Yeah,
Gainwell.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. So
That's what I was going to say, Gainwell.
So let's go Kenneth Gainwell, who's probably going to catch a bunch of passes in garbage time in a game that the Buccaneers will cover. All right. So that leaves us
Fournette's on the board.
7,900. Fournette's on the board. back to you, Grayson.
Oh, I mean, if it's just on me, I think Fournette's the pick here.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, there we go. So our team.
Ooh, I like it.
Mike Evans, is the captain. Devonta Smith, Tom Brady, Zach Ertz, Kenneth Gainwell, and Leonard Fournette split evenly between the two teams. We did not lean Bucks. No, we probably couldn't have leaned Bucks more unless we took their defense. All right, so entering right now.
I'm seeing what the over. So the over-under on this is 52.5, and Vegas is favored by 7. So, they're expecting a, 32-25-ish type game, 33,
I don't think
26.
I don't think it's going to be close. I think the Bucks will cover, and then they'll hit the over because the Eagles will start chipping away in the fourth quarter when the Bucks don't need to do anything anymore. So, Tom Brady's got a bit of a hurt thumb, but he's perfect.
He's fine.
He's fine. He's 44. he's all right. So we're not worried about Tom Brady. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Grayson Grunhaver. Thanks to Steve May. Thanks, of course, to Hayden Bumpus and Brotherwell Brewing, our fantastic sponsor. Check them out at brotherwell.com. And we'll be back again next week. Send us any questions at Paul Catalina at Commish, at Syntex Commish.
Yes, Syntex Commish on the Twitter.
At Gray Grunhaver. And at Bumpus H12, right? Is that it, right?
It's Bumpus_H.
Bumpus_H. If you want to ask Hayden any questions, go ahead.
I'm not going to have a lot of great answers for you.
Yeah.
Ask me about basketball.
Send us those questions on Twitter.
Bumpus only makes me think of Christmas Story.
Yeah. The Bumpus Hounds.
Yes.
That should be the name of his fantasy football team.
Oh,
the
my gosh.
Bumpus
Yes.
Hounds. Should absolutely.
That's a great idea. I'm going to change it now because it's just Team Bump right now. So.
Yes,
the Bumpus Hounds. Oh, my God. That's perfect.
There we go. That's going to do it for us. This is the Fantasy Football Show. Please like and subscribe, or your kids will stop believing in Santa.